Hello, fellow mech warriors. Mage Leader here. Welcome aboard. We are here to take a little look into some of the world of Battletech and other things beyond. I am joined by the legendary Blaine Pardoe tonight. He is here to discuss recent events as well as a few of his upcoming projects, maybe even give us some insight into some of the world of Battletech. We'll see where the conversation goes. I don't have a ton of things scripted tonight. I've got a few questions I'd like to hit, but otherwise, it's going to be pretty chill, pretty casual. We're going to chat about stuff, and if you guys have questions, let us know. We'll filter through some of that as well. Mr. Pardo, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. A little tired from flying back from the state I was raised in, Michigan. I was at bascon this weekend and had a good time there and got back this afternoon. So everything's great. It's good to be home.
Excellent. You want to maybe give like a little introduction to BaseCon for people who aren't familiar?
Yeah, bascon is really kind of cool. It's about 100 to 120-ish science fiction and fantasy people who are all conservative. It's very much a parallel convention to a lot of other sci-fi fantasy conventions. A lot of authors, a lot of fans and stuff. And we go and have seminars just like at every other science fiction convention, but there's none of the wokeness there. There's no pronouns on your name badges or any of that stuff. It's just people getting together who have similar philosophies and values, and we have a good time talking. I mean, I met one of the authors last year, and I started reading his stuff so much that he's actually just finished writing his first land and sea novel.
Ooh.
So, I mean, it's a great networking opportunity, at least from my perspective. There's some other authors who aren't really geared for the type of stuff we do with Land and Sea, but Herman Hunter's there and stuff. And I've met a lot of great authors there, read their stuff, and I try to give them shout outs whenever I can because their stuff's really good.
Yeah, I've enjoyed Herman Hunter's stuff. We run in similar circles over with Drink with Crazy over there. Yeah. We're kind of in that same little group over there. But noted that other people can get in on the Land and Sea bandwagon. I'll make a note of that.
Yeah, we just started this. Declan Finn has just finished the first draft of Tiber's Edge. He's got some tweaks to do to it. He's already a third of the way through the tweaks, so it took him a couple hours. It's really cool because it's just a whole new battlefield in a whole new different way. It's really going to give us the organized church's response to an alien invasion, which is something
interesting.
We really wanted to dive into that and do stuff that no one's tackled before when it comes to these invasions. And I guarantee you the Catholic Church's response is militant.
Nice. That's how it should be, really, when it comes right down to it.
Well, there's 3 million Knights of Columbus.
That's true. These things are not made in the image of God.
Yeah. Well, and you got to remember, if the aliens win, it's kind of game over for organized religion. So things that have been kind of banned for years, like calling for a crusade and stuff, actually get to happen. So
that's really friggin' cool. I can't wait to see that.
Oh, he's done a great job. Honestly, Declan's a great writer. The leap from his outline to what he put together was just a lot of fun. It's just a really great. It's great to see the entire population of Chicago rise up against an alien invasion.
It's nice to see the residents of Chicago shooting at something other than each other for a change.
Right. Well, there's actually references to that in there.
As there should be. So Land and Sea has been a pretty good success, to be sure.
Yeah, Land and Sea's been doing great. Still on the bestseller list with book 7 that came out. We get a lot of great feedback on it. It's weird how the traction is with it because it is a very steady seller, which I think is great because I think a lot of people are hopping over to it. They're looking for alternatives to other stuff that's out there. And it's a great way to jump in. Declan's book is going to be a great entry book because you don't need to have read any of the other stuff to get in. And we're working on some other stuff that will help people that go, I don't want to jump in because I got to read 7 books to know what's going on. Go, well, wait, we've got some shortcuts for you.
Yeah, for sure. I got to get a pitch together because
Yeah,
I've got some nifty ideas.
that's cool. I'm all about nifty ideas. It's my entire life.
I used to work in a shipyard, and I'm like, I had this cool idea. I was like, what if like some guys are just having a normal day building the ships for the Navy on the coast when all of a sudden crabs come out of the water,
Oh yeah.
and it's
See, that
like,
would be
okay,
fun.
grab the grinder, let's go to work.
Yeah. It's good. There's so much. Brett has always envisioned that with Land and Sea, when the game comes out, people will fight the battles in their own neighborhoods. And that's what it really opens up the possibility to do. And I think people, something like what you described is perfect because, where you work is your neighborhood too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's going to be a really appealing thing. A lot of what people like to do in these sort of war games is to make the conflict their own. You see it with guys that like make their own custom chapters in 40K, their own mercenary units in BattleTech. So like the opportunity to just have it take place in your backyard and like, yeah, then I ran and grabbed my shotgun type of thing. I think it's going to be a big draw. I can't think of any other game system that really does that currently. I think Twilight 2000 was a good place to do that.
It was back in the day. I
Yeah,
mean,
but like that, I don't think that's supported anywhere anymore. Not
well, there's
officially.
a new version of it out, and I got it, but it's not your granddaddy's Twilight 2K.
That's a shame because that's really cool stuff. But yeah, that's gonna be a big appeal. Where did the idea for Land and Sea come from? Was that you? Was that a
No,
collaborative effort?
it started with Brent, and it started with some very basic concepts, which was he wanted to have aliens invade and they would come from the ocean. And I mean, that was literally the depth of the initial discussion.
Cool. Pacific
And
Rim, I
so,
like it.
yeah. And so we started talking about it, and there were things that we agreed upon that I said, first of all, we're going to have mecha in this, but not 3-story, 97 km/h max. We're not going to go to that scale. We're going to try to do this more towards hard sci-fi or true military sci-fi, where a lot of what was going to be there was plausible technology because it's not that far in the future. It's set in 2041, so
Yeah.
it's near future. So let's pick technology that is actually things that DARPA and DoD are looking at, and make those available, like ground robotic drones that are semi-autonomous and power suits, and very realistic mecha that operate in that way. And Brent agreed with that, and I also said let's avoid all of the big tropes that most science fiction does with invasion, which there's a magic way to always defeat the aliens. Let's not do that. And
Right. Or like
really just,
all of humanity magically comes together, puts their
yeah,
differences aside.
we really with Land and Sea, one of the tenets that I've propagated is humans are just as bad as the aliens.
Right.
And that's part of what I think people like about the series. I think is, it's not a kumbaya session. It's not, hey, let's all organize, fly up and blow up the aliens' guns in their underbellies and they all die and we win. That's not the scenario in play. This is going to drag on for years. And
Right.
we want that. We want it because then you have a game universe with constant new content coming out, new things to look at, things along those lines. So
Yeah.
it's fun that way.
Yeah, there's a lot of endless possibility when you don't limit yourself to just the aliens are the bad guys. And now you've got all this tech, and it's like, well, what if like another nation sees this as an opportunity to go after someone else? And you got human on human with all this crazy new tech,
Yeah.
and the aliens could be a wild card in that. I mean, it's who's to say that the aliens are all united in it either? Like maybe they have a couple factions that
They
have different
definitely
ideas about how it
do.
goes. So
We've actually showed that the different colonies have attacked each other. We did that in book 6, and so the aliens are not a unified force against us, but we also can't communicate with them. We have zero idea of why they're here, what their plan is. We're trying to piece that together, and we take the reader kind of on that journey with us. So it's fun to watch fans post their theories as to what's going on, because it's like some of them have been accurate and a lot of them are way off. So it's
okay, well that's exciting. It's one of the things that like getting more detail revealed. I haven't been able to keep up with the series as much as I'd like. There's been so many good independent projects coming out lately that
yes,
it's impossible to keep up with them all.
yeah.
Uh, but I've really enjoyed what I've gotten into with Land and Sea so far. I've got to get more of the books and read through them because Lord knows the new stuff coming out of BattleTech is not scratching my mecha itch lately.
I don't know. I honestly haven't read any Battletech stuff since my departure.
I have read a few snippets of things, and BattleTech writing, I'm going to be brutally honest, it can be hit or miss even when like the stuff is good.
Yeah.
So the novels can be hit or miss, but now it's like they just don't care anymore. They're just kind of doing whatever.
Well, there's only, and this isn't meant to be a shot at Battletech, because people are always like, "You're always attacking Battletech." I'm like, "No, I'm not." But I'm trying to be realistic about it from a writer's perspective. There's only so many times you can have the mercenary unit be betrayed by the house or whatever, and they get betrayed, they get their butts kicked, but then they rally and overcome and get back at the guys that betrayed them. If you think about it, that's the core of many Battletech books,
Mm-hmm.
is that whole drama. And there's only so many times you could see the clans defeated because of their honor.
Right, right.
Just I don't want to say they're tropes, but we've gone through those stories, and I
It's
tried
very predictable, I would say.
to a certain degree. Yeah, there are times we don't follow those rules, and that works out well too. But I think the fans are just they are completists. So when a book comes out, there's a cadre of people that will just buy anything with the Battletech logo on it, be it when they put out those stuffed dolls of mechs, I was like, you do realize that the guys that are buying this are like 40 and 50 years old, and they're buying it not because they want a pillow to cuddle with or they're going to give it to their kids, but they're buying it because they have to own everything that comes out.
Right. I was like, well, it's a mech thing to put on my shelf. I gotta have that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course, then it shows up with the arms upside down and backwards.
I've seen pictures. I don't know. This is when your production is in a foreign country, you're going to get stuff like that.
Fubi Games says he feels attacked by that particular remark about people buying everything BattleTech.
I'm not knocking it. I for years, I had to just to keep up with the lore and stuff. I had a huge collection. I sold most of it off. Mm-hmm. I put it up at Noble Knight and got rid of almost all of it because I don't need this stuff anymore.
Yeah, it's in a tough place as a franchise. Recently, it's a difficult story to continue on because of the mess that was made. Which reminds me, you gave me some extra information on the Dark Age era. Now, I made that video just a few days ago, and I drove myself to the brink of insanity trying to figure out what the fuck happened. And I looked through a bunch of different articles. I talked to people who remembered the game as it was coming out. I looked at a bunch of the products, and getting a complete picture was next to impossible. So I gave like what I was able to glean. And then you came along and gave some extra information. Would you like to maybe let the audience know a little bit of that extra detail?
I hate talking Battletech because, it's not my shtick anymore, but
Fair enough.
I can tell you what happened from my perspective. I'm not saying this is the complete truth, but what I experienced when WizKids bought the license and went to the Click Max, which honestly I enjoyed because it was a great way for me to get my kids to play Battletech. It's really hard to get kids to sit down for 6 hours to fight a 2-minute battle. But with the Click Max, it's the surprise of not knowing what you're going to get in the box. Plus, the actual play was you could field huge armies and mash each other up, and it was a lot of fun to do that. But from a writer's perspective, when they did it, I reached out to the new editor, which was a woman by the name of Jen Heddle. And I said, look, I've been writing Battletech for, at that point, I think 20 years, and I'd love a shot to do another novel. Mike Stackpole had done the novel to kick things off, and I think a lot of that was Mike and Jordan are very close. So I was like, yeah, I'd love to do it. And Jen was less than amicable. Basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, but it's pretty close. The writers that Battletech had all those years were hack writers. And she used the word hack. She said, I'm bringing in real science fiction writers. And we're going to carry this out to the next level. And so my thought was, okay, I guess you don't need us anymore. And I'm still going to buy the miniatures and play the game and stuff. But, if you're not going to, being basically told you're a hack is kind of a clue.
Right.
Like, we don't need you anymore. We don't want you anymore. Please move on.
It's a pretty brutal thing to say. Like, somebody comes up and says, hey, like, I used to be part of this. Can I still do stuff for you? And be like, not just no, thank you. Your services are not required, but basically fuck off.
Yeah. And I wasn't the only author that went through that. And so we all were like, hey, we're not needed. Move on to other projects. And we did.
Yeah. Zero points out that it sounds like Kathleen Kennedy, but that's kind of funny because you said, I believe Jen now works doing the Star Wars books, right?
Yeah, that's where it got. Well, we're jumping ahead of the story. So at one point, Randall got brought back in to try to, for lack of better words, unfuck what WizKids was doing. And he brought back all the core writers and essentially did what we used to do, which is kind of map out where are we going to guide this story and where are we going to take this story. And we were really straightening things out. But the problem was they had gone through such a series of bad decisions that book sales were dropping off dramatically. And to give you an idea, the original print runs of Battletech could run 60, 70,000 copies, for a novel. By the time WizKids got done, they were in the 20,000 range or less. So, I mean, Jen Heddle really killed it, and they got rid of her. She ended up being the new person to lead the Star Wars novel line. So one of her first acts was to obviously throw out all the legacy novels, the extended universe, and
we're going to bring in some real writers.
We're going to bring in some real writers and look at what they've done, because those books are selling between 1,000 and 2,000 copies each at this point. So I'll give her this. She's consistent.
Yeah, right. I feel so bad for Timothy Zahn. Can you imagine? That guy wrote some of the best of those EU books, and they've roped him back in to making new versions of the stuff.
Yeah, I don't feel bad for him because I'm sure he's being paid well.
Well, sure.
It's a choice on his part. If it was bad, he's been putting out a lot of books with Bain and some other publishers. He didn't have to go back to that. So it was a choice on his part. And I get it. We all do that. I went back to Battletech, as did a number of the other writers. So, it's all a question of, do you want to go back and roll up your sleeves and go back to it? And to Randall's credit, and this people are always like, oh, you only say bad things about Battletech. No, Randall did a good job of unwinding the mess that was the Dark Ages and getting it more organized, and the fiction kind of driving towards more of a central storyline that we had.
Yeah, it's amazing that anything was salvaged out of it at all. It was such a mess.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely applaud the now. I've been vocal in that I do not like anything that comes afterward or the retcons, because it's I believe the word I used was tiptoeing around the bloated corpse that is the Dark Age, because it's the elephant in the room. You can't just it didn't pretend it didn't happen. It clearly happened, and so now everything else has to acknowledge that it was there.
That was the one thing I actually liked about Hour of the Wolf, was driving a stake in the heart of the Dark Ages.
Yeah, for sure.
And there were some things Brent and I went over during that whole period, and they were controversial, but for the most part, even at the Writers' Summit, everybody agreed. I said, look, the Republic of the Spheres got to die.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people in the room who were like, well, wait, there's fans of it, and we'll upset them. But I said, it's
maybe like three fans.
Well, the problem is 3 fans online being vocal seems like a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
And don't get me wrong, there are fans of the Dark Ages. That's where people came in. But the Republic of the Sphere had all the sex appeal of the Rousal Hog Republic, as far as I was concerned.
Hey now.
Hey,
watch it.
It was just like it appeared in a source book, and then it was a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
To me, it was killing the Republic completely was necessary. And it was necessary to kind of set the stage for stuff that was supposed to come after that.
Gotcha. I'll ignore the Rosselhog comment because I'm a massive Rosselhog fan. However,
I get it. There are, but yeah.
Oh man,
you're a Ghost Bear fan. So.
no, but yeah, it's I'm amazed that there was anything that was able to come out of it at all, really. But I'm curious, is that the reason why you chose to have Devlin Stone smothered with a fucking pillow?
Well, the original suggestion was that Chance would stab him. And I said, stabbing is a very personal way to kill people.
Not disrespectful enough.
Well, it's not just that. It's just I write true crime books, and she didn't have that kind of an emotional attachment to Stone to do that. And I said, he's an old man. He's feeble in bed. Let me just smother him.
So it's more like a practical, efficient way of handling it with less mess.
Yeah, well, it's also you don't have to face him while you're doing it. There's something very symbolic about the pillow over the face.
It's very Clanner of them, really. That sort of, it's not an honorable way to kill somebody, but I mean, Clanners, they're more than willing to put honor aside when it's convenient for them.
Yeah, well, and I had inherited the character of Alaric. Lauren created him. I think Mike played with him with a book or two, and I got him. He was at best a half-baked character as he was. And, I also didn't let him be the one to do it. And
yes, which is appreciated.
Which I think makes a interesting statement about him, and it makes an interesting statement about Chance Vickers. But
yeah, that is one thing I will say when it comes to Hour of the Wolf. I despise Alaric Ward as a character, but I will say in Hour of the Wolf, I didn't hate him nearly as bad because he felt more like an actual person. So definitely kudos for managing that.
Well, yeah,
not an easy task with how much I despise that guy.
It's interesting. If you go through the source books on Alexander Kerensky, for example, you really go, oh, he was such a kick-ass, badass, boom, boom, boom. If you're going just by the early source books that Faz put out, Kerensky was the bomb. Mm-hmm. But by the time you get the fiction and you get his crazy-ass son,
right,
you realize he was the world's worst father. And that his bad parenting is what led to the downfall of the Star League and led to the succession. He literally lit the fuse on the succession wars and then left.
Yeah.
In many respects, Kerensky was not the hero that everybody likes painting him as. And I think Alaric is going to be one of those characters, depending on what they do with him. I don't know. They may just kill him off, but who knows? But if they keep him around, there's the potential there to do some really interesting stuff with him. And as well as with Chance. I think Chance would be a fantastic character. She's a lot like Ender's sister in Ender's Game,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I will say that I kind of wish that they were able to do some more with Jade Falcon, and that well, they kind of are, because they have that sort of like splinter group there with the what's his name, the former Salama guy.
Yeah, I read the one book on that, but I don't know.
All right. So moving on from BattleTech, or well, sort of moving on from BattleTech, it's still kind of related to it. You made a couple announcements recently on Twitter that have to do with this. You want to give everyone the rundown on that? We talked about, like, there's not much more to say other than what was written, but some people are too lazy to read, so let's give it to them in audiobook form.
Well, the short version is on one of the announcements, I announced I was suing Topps Corporation for non-payment of royalties for the last 2 years. At the time that everything folded between me and Catalyst, I was paid by Topps for the previous year, but since then I haven't received a check, nor have I received any of the royalty reporting that we have contracted. Now, this is only for the books that were the early Battletech and MechWarrior novels and the Dark Age novels that I did. This is none of the stuff that Catalyst produces, but Catalyst does produce the royalty reports for those things. So I don't know if it's Catalyst not giving the royalty reports for me or for all the authors to Topps. Is it that, and I should clarify now, I have heard from their legal counsel. Well, he's no longer their legal counsel, but he works in their legal department, I guess, and basically said, you sued Topps and served the president, but he's actually now the former president, so you're going to have to refile paperwork. Great. So sometime and I expected some legal shenanigans with these guys, so I will be refiling the lawsuit again this week, I hope, and getting it, It's funny that they didn't respond to certified mail. They didn't respond to emails. They didn't respond to voicemail messages. But once you serve paperwork to the president of the company, or the ex-president of the company, apparently, then you start getting emails where they're going, oh, well, it's not us anymore. It's Fanatics. Fine, I'll sue Fanatics. It's a bigger company.
Jeez. There's definitely a problem, like who is actually running the show over there, because there's a lot of finger pointing I've noticed whenever anything goes wrong.
Yeah, well, I haven't really tracked other stuff other than the stuff I'm involved with. And I know people are out there going, oh, Blaine's always stirring the pot when it comes to Battletech. Well, that's not really true. I'm only stirring the pot when they fuck me over.
I was going to say, you barely mention it I follow you on Twitter. You barely ever mention it unless it affects you directly. It's like Blaine's moved on to bigger and better things.
Well, a lot of it is there's a group out there that no matter what takes anything that I say, and I'm sure this podcast will get blown way out of proportion, but they take anything I say and they distort it, twist it, etc. Yeah, I had some guy accuse me of, you've been spreading lies about Bishop Steiner. Somebody posted that he was, a fugitive from the law. All I said is I'd heard the same rumor. That became Blaine's spreading lies about Bishop Steiner. And I was like, no, all I said was I'd heard the same rumor.
I've probably done more for that than you have, because I've just posted it as a meme. It's a meme in Battletech now. You don't ask why Bishop Steiner lives in Mexico.
Oh, I know. I don't, but they take anything that I say and distort it and twist it. And things along those lines. So yeah, I'm not and people have said I'm suing Tops because I was canceled. No, that's not what this is. I'm trying to get payment for royalties due that have been collected, and I just want my fair share. They've collected the money, and I'd like the part that we have legally contracted, and that's fine. Um, if anybody thinks that's wrong, or that, and I've seen people, well, he doesn't deserve it. Well, then
Well,
they should stop selling my books. And
right.
if they decide to do that, and I fully expect at some point that will be a decision that Fanatics or Tops or Catalyst makes, then that's fine. At least they're not collecting money on stuff that I've done.
Right. It's like if they sell your stuff, then yeah, you deserve it because they're using your work. Like
Yeah.
that's how royalties work.
Well, and I had served the paperwork. I was waiting until I got my little return receipt on the lawsuit, from the postage, and I had that ready to go. And then in the middle of all this, they re-released The Core, which is an anthology from the old Battle Corps. I call it Corpse, Battle Corps project that Catalyst used to run, where they had, you bought a subscription and they put out fiction. And this was a reprint.
It's kind of like what Shrapnel is now, but a little different.
Yeah, it really is. And this is a reprint of a book. And if I honestly didn't even know it had gone back into press. I didn't, that's how little I'm tracking it. And a fan reached out to me and he said, look, they omitted your name from the Amazon listing. And so I looked, and it's funny because on the Catalyst website, they listed my name with the product. Someone deliberately went in and extracted my name out. It was very deliberate. And, it was like, wow, you're being that level of petty. And the counter to that, I would say, is, yeah, they're being petty, but it is the world's largest marketplace. And for them to have made that conscious effort to just go, hey, we're going to erase his name off of this, was really kind of frustrating. I saw somebody sent me some screenshots what Anthony Scrogan said. I've always respected him a great deal as an artist, but he would be the first person that would be upset if somebody printed, one of his pieces of art and didn't give him credit for it. And he all but came out and said, well, why should we promote Blaine? He says bad things about Battletech all the time.
Well, I'll tell him why, because I get if they don't want to put the name on the listing because, they don't want to associate. But like, if you're going to do that, don't use Archer Christofori in that same blurb to try and advertise the thing.
Everybody, and my name's in the book. Don't get me wrong. It's in the book. It's actually
it's in the book.
Cover of the book. It's just they literally on Amazon made a deliberate effort and removed it. And that's the level of childishness that Catalyst did. That wasn't Tops, that wasn't Fanatics, that was Catalyst doing that. And they still haven't corrected it. And I'm sure, knowing the people involved, they're like, we're not going to. But if that's the choice they're going to make, then that may have some implications down the road too. I don't know. I honestly have a lot of time on my hands, and I saw it and took some affront to it. And if you don't stand up and say something about it, I think it's wrong, because you're just basically saying I accept it, and I don't.
Yeah, definitely. I wonder if they fixed it, or if it's still that way. Someone in the chat, check Amazon for The Core and see if that's still omitting his name there.
I don't know. I haven't looked because I've been at a convention for several days, and I got other things to do with my time. But the fact is, and people got all upset because I did a post about it, and they're like, you should have just accepted it. Why are you stirring the pot? I didn't start this, guys.
Yeah.
I'm just reacting to stuff that's being done to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be quiet about it. And if they want to purchase my quiet, I'll enter into some talks about what would it take to shut me up?
Right. Yeah.
Costly. I don't know what that number is, but it's possible.
It's a recurring tactic I've noticed with a lot of people where something happens and you say you don't like it, and then everyone's like, "Why you gotta be so negative?" And it's like, well, because I'm just saying what I think about it. It's like there's nothing wrong with that.
Right. And any one of these whiny people that go, it's not a big deal. If it was their story and their name was omitted, this participation trophy and ribbon community would be screaming about it.
Mm-hmm.
And probably far worse than what I've done. All I did was state the facts, and there's a lot of stuff I don't know. I strongly suspect I know who did it because I know who pushes those things into production with Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
That's the editor, John. And John has made a point before in an email format. And I've posted a copy of that email in my blog about he didn't want this kind of drivel associated with Battletech, and it wouldn't shock me at all. I don't think this was a top-down decision. I don't think there was a secret meeting held about it. I think it was just John going, I don't want Blaine associated with Battletech, but we're going to go sell his stuff.
Yeah. Causal Kraken here says he just checked, name is still missing, but the book has gotten a bunch of bad reviews because of it.
Yeah, and I haven't encouraged that. I'm not a big review bomb guy, and despite what people have said.
Other people are saying they see it on Amazon. Fubal Games here has said a couple times that it seems to be conflicted. Maybe it's like different between like a North American and European listing.
Maybe.
Sometimes that happens.
Maybe. I don't know. For me, it was frustrating. No one reached out to me from Catalyst. Somebody said, well, did you reach out to Catalyst and try to work through this ahead of time? Hell no. We are done. They made it real clear they don't want anything to do with me. The last thing I'm going to do is reach out to them and try to negotiate. Not happening.
Yeah. Okay. It looks like it's been fixed. They've added the name into the list of authors there. That is nice.
That's good. Well, I'll take it as a victory.
Better late than never.
Didn't get the apology, but I got that.
Yeah. That's the admission of guilt is sometimes about as good.
Well, kudos to them for doing the right thing.
Yeah. Gotta take the W's where you can and this sort of thing.
Yeah. And I've seen some fans over the lawsuit. It's been hilarious because people are like, hey, sue them. I hope you get enough money to buy Battletech. I'm not suing them for that kind of money, guys. This is dozens of dollars, not billions of dollars.
I get the impression that you're done enough with Battletech where you wouldn't necessarily even want to be the guy running the show.
I would gladly love to be in charge. Honestly, if I wasn't dealing with some of the same people there, I would love to write Battletech fiction. I'm not going to with the same people that are there. The trust has been permanently damaged with the people that are currently in place.
Yeah, it's been that way for a lot of people. I remember they went on their big banning spree not too long ago.
Yeah,
one of the longtime guys up until that happened. I'm gonna call him out by his account name, and hopefully he doesn't mind. But Otterpops, one of the most genuine and wholesome guys on the entire internet. This is a guy who would regularly post pictures of him enjoying CGL's Battletech products. He'd buy the maps, he bought the books, just showing off his collection. And they block him for no good reason. And just how quickly that turned him. It utterly broke him for a couple of days. Poor guy was in a horrible state because of, just treating a longtime fan who's had nothing but good things to say about you that way. Biting the hand that feeds. It's been that way for so many people. So I think a lot of people are kind of finding some catharsis in this whole thing, though I do think it's worth pointing out. A lot of people are saying that you're suing Catalyst. You're suing Tops. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm not suing Catalyst. However, if they play the wrong legal shenanigans and etc., This could very well result in subpoenas and discovery that would involve Catalyst. I'm hoping that they simply do the right thing and cut me a check. This could be solved in about an hour and a half on the phone at this point.
Yeah.
It's not a complicated thing. I want to see the royalty reporting and I want to be paid. At this point, they now have to pay for my lawyer's fees that I've spent at this point, as well as legal filing fees.
Yeah.
So,
Halbeck makes a good point here, because this isn't the first time this has happened. Stackpole, this happened to back in the day. I read his blog post about it. Unpaid royalties is not a new problem for the people running Battletech. It's apparently been a thing before and seems to be recurring.
Actually, this is not the first time that I've sued Topps, and the lawsuit that I did with Topps resulted in all of the authors for legacy authors for Battletech and Shadowrun being paid for 11 years of unpaid royalties.
11 years.
Yes.
Wow.
And that was because of my effort. I was the first guy that took them to court. And Mike talked about it. His sister's a lawyer, I guess, and he was going to do all sorts of stuff. I actually filed a lawsuit, and Topps, it took that to get them to engage and have the discussion and actually figure out a way to settle it. And part of that was the FASA contracts and the WizKids contracts. They inherited those, and I don't know why they didn't during discovery during the period when they're looking to buy a company and you review contracts. They should have looked at that and said, this is a mess and we need to straighten it out. Their approach was very much, we can't figure this out, so we're just not going to pay anybody.
Yeah, right. If we ignore the problem, it'll go away.
Well, I think there was a lot of that. And yeah, honestly, I'll be very blunt. Topps dealt with me very fairly during that period. And the work that I did resulted in the other authors all being paid. You would not have any of the legacy authors writing Battletech, like Mike Stackpole and Bill Keith, wouldn't be writing any Battletech stories if it hadn't been for that.
So what's your impression of Topps as a company and like how they manage these IPs that they own the rights to?
I don't have a real big opinion about it. I think they struggle with Battletech because I don't think it fits the mold of all the other stuff they have. And
it's not baseball cards, damn it.
It's not baseball cards. It's not hats or jerseys. It's, so I don't know if it's that they struggle with that. I honestly don't have my opinion of them is pretty limited to the time that when I was let go, and they from what Lauren told me, they told him to make this problem go away, and his solution was to get rid of me.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm basing my opinion on what I heard from Lauren, and I don't know if that's a good source or not.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because they own the rights to a bunch of different properties, and they just don't really seem to know what to do with them.
Well, they're making good money. I mean, the last Kickstarter brought in what, $4 million? I hear. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Though you could also argue that if you have to go to Kickstarter to get your tabletop thing funded, it's not a good sign to begin with.
I don't know. I think if it's a brand new game, absolutely, Kickstarter's the way to go.
Well, for sure.
If it's an
Battletech isn't brand new, though.
Yeah, if it's an established property, it's been out there a long time. I don't know. Why didn't you just do pre-orders for it? If you look at what is going on with Eric July, he's not crowdfunding. He's doing pre-orders. And at the end of the pre-order period, he ships.
Yeah, revolutionary concept, that.
Yeah, and to me, that it's what Eric July has done with the Rippaverse is fascinating to look at from a business model perspective. It's just really good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's found a lot of success, and a lot of people are really salty about it. But I've always said, like, hey, the guy can be a little abrasive at times, but look at me, I'm pretty abrasive most of the time. So you know what, I respect it. The guy's doing a good job over there.
I can be a dick like anybody else.
Exactly.
But for the most part, I'm not the demon that the nut jobs have, labeled me. It's just I don't feel it. And it bothers me that a lot of times that other conservative creators who have gone indie just they want to go at him, and it's like, why can't we all just get along here? We're all creators. You guys aren't taking money from each other.
That's been the most baffling thing. I don't keep up with the drama to any reasonable idea. All I see is a couple of big names in the industry who just apparently really hate each other for some reason, and their fans really hate each other for some reason. And it's like, we're getting independent comics that aren't Marvel trash. Like, can we maybe celebrate the W here?
Yeah, to me, I think that's cool. The fact that somebody's launched a whole new universe of comics and they're financially successful, why not just embrace that?
Yeah, what's there to complain about?
Why do we have to argue about who's the big dog on the block and who said what to who? Just be nice to each other and embrace it. And we talked a little bit about this at BasedCon, how important it is for conservatives to hang together. But what happens is once one becomes successful, there's this animosity that builds up, and I don't understand it myself. Mostly because I haven't been wildly successful. I've been just successful. So yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
On the topic of indie stuff, we got Scarier the Third here with an interesting question. Any thoughts on pitching an IP license for a Land and Sea video game? I'm game, FPS strategy, etc.
Yes, there have been some discussions.
Ooh.
I'm not going to tell you that in any details because everything is still very early. We're also having discussions with an animation studio. So, because the vision we've always had for Land and Sea was this is a franchise, which means it's not just the novels. It's going to be a tabletop game. It's going to be a role-playing game. It's going to be the graphic novel. We launched that and have had great success with that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that because I was never a big comic book guy, but occasionally like a good graphic novel will hit me just right. And the art that I was seeing for that was so cool.
It is. It's very strange. And so we're looking at all sorts of different approaches. Now, Brent and I differ a little bit on what we want with the game, but a lot will depend on what the financiers for it want to do. Brent would like more of a strategy game. I want to be in the cockpit shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's small unit action, so it's kind of perfect for this stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just personally, like if I was given carte blanche to make whatever game I wanted with it, I would also want to be the guy. I wouldn't just want to be the guy in the mech. I'd like to be one of the infantry guys.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when I think of like
unit action,
I've always been obsessed with like the little guy in stories. It's one of the things that's actually been a frustration with Battletech because Battletech focuses in its fiction almost exclusively on the big names, the commanders, the captains, the important people. And there'll occasionally be, smaller stature characters who become important, but there's very little focus on the little guy. So there's almost no focus on the civilian side whatsoever in Battletech. I don't recall seeing a whole lot of even like what people do for fun generally on a planet in Battletech.
Not really.
It's not what people are there for most of the time. But that fascinates me.
Ilsa Blick wrote, was it Blood of the Isle? I'm going off memory here. She wrote a novel that was a detective novel set in the Battletech universe.
I gotta find that because that sounds like it's my kind of thing.
I mean, but the problem is it kind of fizzled with fans, and it had nothing to do with her writing and skill. She's an excellent writer.
Yeah. Well,
Problem
people want the big action, and I'm not faulting the big action, but like for me personally, I love focusing on the smaller characters who are just kind of bystanders to the whole thing, or they're caught up in the bigger events that are out of their control. They're just trying to do the best that they can. So when I look at Land and Sea, that's why my first thought jumps to like guys in the shipyard just trying to beat off the crabs with angle grinders because it's what they have handy.
Well, one of the ideas I had pitched and had actually done a little starting on for Battletech when I was let go was a POW escape.
Ooh.
So there was going to be a little mech action in it, but for the most part, it was the Great Escape.
Dude, the Great Escape in Battletech sounds incredibly. They had like an episode like that in the animated series, kind of.
Right. But I mean, do kind of the Great Escape, but do it with a Battletech thing. Yeah, they would commandeer a mech, but it gets back to, how do you get off a planet if the POW camps on a rear area planet? You need a ship, you need a drop ship, you need a jump ship. You got to have a way of getting there, and the complications of all of the elements that needed to come into play. I had worked through how to do it.
You need James Garner to steal a bunch of papers for you to copy. That's what you
need. Right. I mean, it was going to be just a very different story because it wasn't about conquering a planet. It was trying to get away from a planet.
Yeah. And like we were mentioning earlier, like a lot of Battletech fiction is kind of repetitive because it's the same kind of story a lot of the time over and over again. And I looked at the franchise initially when I started up the channel. It was kind of in the hope that maybe one day I could try and write something for Battletech because I don't have a lot of talents, but I'm decent at writing. I was like, well, maybe I could put a story idea out there. But like, I always thought maybe like there was a gap there that could be filled if they would just if they just try to do it. Maybe the new writers will find something to do in there, or maybe like you'll get more of that sort of thing in Shrapnel. But I haven't really seen it yet.
I don't know. I don't wish anything bad to happen to Battletech. I hope they find their way, and I hope they connect with their actual audience and their fans.
Yeah. Stuck Inside Gaming has a question here. Would Enemy Mine be a type of story that could happen in Battletech? An inner sphere and claner get disabled away from their comrades but have to rely on one another to survive. I almost feel like that. I almost feel like that's been done. I can't remember exactly where.
Well, you've got Phil and Kel being a prisoner and then turning into a clanner and
treasonous bastard.
Yeah, I think that would be an interesting story, but you got to remember the whole clan. The clans are very different, and we treat them in fiction as very, they all walk in lockstep, and that just isn't the case, and we've seen that when I did, No Substitute for Victory. You had this old decrepit warrior with a bunch of kids left behind, during Hour of the Wolf, having to fight it out, and he doesn't follow the normal clan stuff. And that to me was a fascinating story to write because it's not your traditional clan story where it's like, oh, it's a clan guy, we can trick him by making him honorably give up all his assets before he goes into the battle. That wasn't the case. He wasn't playing by those rules. And
the Codex Astartes does not support this action.
Yeah. It was very much I'm going to do this to win, because winning is the ultimate thing within the clan mentality. Is you just need to win because might makes right. So,
Fubi Games simply says "Far Country."
It's the punching bag of the Battletech.
What a shame.
I read it at the time. I've never gone back to it. And I was like, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I made a whole video in the early days of my channel about why Battletech is better off without aliens. And of course, I had to address the elephant in the room that was Far Country. And I was like, look, even the people who wrote it said it was a bad idea. So
Yeah, it wasn't the right thing to do, but it got done.
yeah, it's just one of those things. I will say that enemy mine idea, I could see it working pretty well in land and sea.
Oh, well,
If ever there was a sort of thing, like maybe you have a couple guys on a DMZ on a patrol that are in a standoff or confrontation when the attack happens, and they find themselves caught up in the whole thing, just trying to stay alive. That
I
could be
won't
fun.
rule it out, but I think we got to advance the universe a little bit further because there's no communication with these aliens at this point, and that makes that kind of story very difficult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was talking like human characters. So, because like the humans have different factions. So you have like a couple human factions that aren't getting along. Some of their guys get caught up the invasion. It's a different take on the humanity uniting. Not so much, we come together to fight the aliens, so much as, oh God, we're both going to die unless we actually try and work together here a little bit.
There was a little bit of that in Tides of Redemption, but what you really ended up with is more of a scene kind of from the end of Aliens, where Vasquez and Gorman pull the hand grenade and blow themselves up as well as the enemy. There's some of that in Land and Sea at this point, and that's in book 6. So,
gotcha. So, I have to wonder: is anyone trying to keep one of the crabs as a pet yet?
No, and I would not play with that stuff.
Well, there's at least one person who's like, I want to boop the snoot.
Yeah, there's going to be a whole bunch of bad things that happen.
I would assume most of that went away after the snail incident.
Well, it was more of the one scene I liked that we did in the anthology book, the compilation stories, was where the guys, part of the initiation for the new guys was that you had to eat the aliens.
Ooh.
They cooked up the crab and served it with butter. And the problem is the DNA of it is so alien to your stomach that you end up with explosive diarrhea and vomiting like in a matter of minutes. And that's part of the initiation of, taste your enemy. And everybody watches them when they eat it. And they're like, it actually tastes pretty good. And then, bleh.
That's brilliant.
But that's what military guys do.
It totally is. Yeah, it's one of the things that I've really liked about Land and Sea is like how grounded the military feels for most of it. I think I said so in my review of Splashdown that it feels almost Tom Clancy.
Yeah, there is. It's that by design. We're trying to mimic the U.S. military primarily, but we show all the different militaries at one point or another, and you want that vibe with the military sci-fi guys. They want to be able to look at and go, it's in the future, but it's not super far future. I can identify and relate with those things.
I like what Paladin Dragoon Rider says here. If they were Marines, they'd try to screw it.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to go there because I've got a Marine project coming up sometime.
It's PG-13, guys. Gotta. We won't get into all that sort of thing, but I'm sure there's at least one suburban Midwest white woman who's thinking about it, but we won't go there.
Right.
One thing that I remember that was actually pretty cool. You kind of predicted the rise of AI resurrected actors in movies.
Oh yeah.
This was before like ChatGPT and AI generated pictures really exploded.
We had a new John Wayne movie starring John Wayne.
Yeah, because they found the ability to resurrect him, and that was a neat little bit of foresight coming true. You should write for The Simpsons. Everything
we're doing is tied to stuff that the government is either working on or is taking a look at. So you just have to look at it and go, it's actually pretty easy to see where things would go. I think people get carried away with AI, and we have some discussions within the universe. There's some stuff in the novels coming up that explain why AI isn't more prevalent in the universe.
Mm.
And it has to do with some stuff that went on when China retook Taiwan.
Gotcha.
And so, I mean, there's some stuff like that we explain why there's now restrictions on AI, and there's certain areas that it's allowed in, but there's certain areas like in the military, they're very careful with it.
Yeah. Here's another one from Scurrier the Third. Don't feel like you necessarily have to answer this because we don't want to give things away, but way out of range at this point, what's the end game look like? Do we have to go into space to get the fish or what?
No comment. I am not gonna ruin this movie.
I absolutely positively understand. I would not complain if we went into space to fight them. That'd be friggin' cool. At the same time, they're coming from the ocean, so
we are way away from that.
The more stuff we do underwater, the happier I am, because that is it really is the final frontier, is the ocean.
Yeah, it's incredibly deadly. I mean, you can take a hit in your armor and stuff, on the surface, and it's no big deal. You get a pinhole underwater,
that is a nightmare.
You're dead.
You've created an impromptu plasma cutter in an inconvenient location.
Yeah, it's just not going to go well for you.
We got one from Stormcrow. Blaine and Mage, did either of you play XCOM or its sequels? I played the original XCOM and liked it. Did you play it?
I don't play it, but I'm going to say I may have played it back in the day, but we're talking like 1990s.
Yeah, XCOM is pretty old.
I mean, there were a lot of them I played during that period where I play them for a couple weeks and then shelve them because I got stuck wherever I was. So
we have one guy just going absolutely off in the chat about Canopian cat girls.
That's not my thing, man.
So there are no cat girls. Period. Move on with your weird memes and fantasies. Agreed. I would be more than happy to just pretend. I'd be happy enough to pretend that Canopus doesn't exist. Not because I don't think it's a cool place in the setting, but just because of the fans.
It's Reno, Nevada on a planet.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, I'm like, I'm okay with it existing, but I don't think it's a major player or even a necessarily good place for stories.
Yeah. It's one of the... It's another thing. Like, you can do cool stuff with it, but they really don't because everyone's just obsessed with haha 6.
Yeah, well, lately it's been I've seen a lot of stuff on the internet that people are posting about interchangeable genitalia and stuff, and I'm like, I really don't want to know.
Yeah, right. It's like, I just
that has nothing to do with your capability to pilot a battle.
It's like, this like, where's the robot?
Yeah, I'm sorry. You guys have missed the whole point of this.
Yeah, that Diane Inikatan makes a good point here. Riley has done some nice things with Canopus. Riley, Majestrix Riley, she goes as her big thing is actually expanding on Canopus beyond the memes and the actual like politics and military of the place, which is definitely what I think is the best approach. I always recommend her stuff. She's one of the most wholesome individuals out there. Just kind of doesn't care about the drama and just likes Battletech stuff. We could all be so lucky.
Yeah, I just don't spend a lot of time looking at Battletech stuff. I mean, I've got a Galaxy's Edge mech book coming out. I've got the 10-year series that I'm working on with Mike Barron. The first book on that's coming out soon. I'm working on the second book. I'm writing books, for Land and Sea, and I got the Blue Dawn stuff off in the, that's looming. So, yeah, I've got mech stuff all over the place. So I just don't look at Battletech stuff. I know my haters out there all think I'm sitting here all night studying where things are going on Battletech and plotting, you know,
Even I don't have
so
time for that.
yeah, just so discontent. And I'm like, guys, I only get involved when people screw with me.
Flying Gothics here makes an excellent point. Technically, Cthulhu was an alien invading from the sea.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
All right. Well, we've been going here for a little over an hour. I don't want to hold you up. I know you just got back from a big trip, so uh, I'm gonna I'm gonna wrap things up here pretty quick. But I do want to say it was great having you on. It was good talking about things.
Oh, sure.
Definitely excited uh, to hear more about what's coming out. Uh, I think everyone in the chat would like to wish you good luck in your attempting to get what you are owed from Tops.
I'm
Uh,
sure it's going to work out, guys. I'm not asking for $1 bazillion. I'm asking for give me the accounting and cut me a check.
yeah,
It's nothing that's not owed me, from a contractual basis.
yeah, it's a fairly straightforward thing. Like, hey, I did the work. You're still selling the work. You give me the thing. Like we made a contract about this, if you'll recall.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it's a big administrative oversight. I don't know at this point, and honestly, not knowing means I have to take action to do what I have to protect my brand.
Yeah, for sure. So before we let you go, what's the best place for people to follow your stuff and get in on the wonderful bandwagon that is your work?
Obviously, the best place, I'll go to Amazon, look up my name, go buy a book, have some fun. That's always great. Honestly, I'm on Twitter all the time. It's probably where I'm the most political. So, if you're not conservative, believe me, you're not going to want to follow me. But you can follow me on Facebook. I don't do a lot of politics up there. I've got both an author's page and I've got my own page up there. There's a Land and Sea fan group in Facebook, as well as a Discord channel for Land and Sea. So yeah, there's a lot of places if you want to engage with Land and Sea stuff, jump in.
All right, cool. And then one final question: what's the next big thing coming out that people should look forward to?
Wow. The two things that I think are coming that are really, well, there's three. Okay. The next book in this new trilogy for Land and Sea and I just got Brent's edits today. So that'll be going to the editor, I think, by the weekend, which is real exciting. That's book 8, Typhoons of Turmoil. I did a book for Galaxy's Edge that's all mecha stuff. It's called The Lost Legions. It is really cool because they have established mechs. They call them hunter killer planet pounders in their universe, but they've never done an actual novel that's centered on mechs. And when I went to Wargate with Land and Sea, they were like, "We're happy to do it, but you've got to write us our first mech book." And this is it. And the pre-reads I've heard from their insider group, so far it's been real positive. So that'll be fun because it's kind of a standalone book in the Galaxy's Edge stuff. And I'm doing a project with Mike Barron, who was the writer for The Punisher in the 90s.
Oh.
And we're doing a novel series and the first book's called Tenure. The series is actually called Tenure too. And it is... The pitch I made for it was picture the Punisher killing the woke.
Oh, my goodness.
And
okay, well, that's spicy.
yeah, it is. It's just something. There's a lot of character development in it. There's a lot of reasons for it. There's a lot of it, but it is. It's written very much like the Mac Bolan Executioner books from the 1970s. It's men's adventure. Is the genre I tend to think of it. Oh, it's definitely basic.
Yeah, the chat is absolutely loving this idea. So I think we've got some sales here.
Yeah, tenure. I just got the audiobook stuff sent over for the narrator to do. So yeah, it's Falling Down, it's Death Wish, it's Nobody, it's John Wick, it's The Equalizer, all wrapped together. I
That
mean,
sounds incredibly fun.
and you know, it just harkens back to when we did adventure books that were vigilantes and violence.
It reminds me of like a Dirty Harry kind of thing.
It is.
Dirty Harry was a hero.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and a number of people have done. They had some pre-reads on it, just to see it. And so far everybody's like, when do we get book 2? And I am working feverishly with Mike on book 2, so it's gonna be fun.
As I will definitely give you major props for just being able to hammer out tons and tons of work. I've never seen someone consistently put out quality stuff as much as you do. I'm incredibly grateful to have had you on tonight, and I won't hold you up any longer, but definitely everybody go and check out his stuff online. Definitely excited for Galaxy's Edge in tenure. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Be sure to follow him on Twitter. If you have any more questions for him, you can probably ask him there. He's a very personable guy, would probably be more than willing to chat with you about it. But I'm going to let him go and get some rest after his long weekend here. So thanks once again for tuning in. And until next time, this is Mage Leader, and on behalf of Blaine Pardoe, signing off.